contestant is Jonathan Dunn. Finding my bearings, Jonathan Dunn.
If I were to ask you, have you ever felt torn up by a tragedy? I bet you would say yes. In the summer of 1982, our family had embarked on an adventure. It wasn't really an adventure. My dad just had us lost on the way to Granny's. Making matters worse, he crashed our brand new station wagon into a tree. Now, it was a minor graze, but when he grazed the tree, a big snake fell out of the tree and landed on our windshield. I had never heard my dad yell at this point, but he slammed on the gas and he began swerving like a madman, trying to get the snake to come off. I did what any 10-year-old would do in this situation. I reached for a bag of Cheetos, and for the first time in my life, I emotionally ate. My dad slammed on the brakes. I'm still fighting the whiplash 30 years later. And then his head, it pivoted around like that scene in The Exorcist. Politely, he requested, "Would you please quit crunching on those Cheetos? I'm trying to find my bearings. We are lost." Dad knew clarity to find our way would only emerge from the silence. Now that Dad had quiet and this map that was the size of a small man, we made it to Granny's in time for her cinnamon rolls. However, I wish we had gotten lost. Shortly after arriving, my mother received a phone call from our neighbors back home. My best friend in the whole wide world, Rachel, had died suddenly after contracting something called Reye's syndrome. I was distraught. The very next day, my grandmother had a birthday party on her farm for one of her hands. One of the people who worked for her saw how distraught I was, and they invited me into the farm shed to see something they promised would cheer me up. What 10-year-old doesn't love kittens? I stepped into the shed, and when I got on that dark, dirty, disgusting floor, there weren't any kittens. You can use your imagination to know what happened next. I will simply tell you, my childhood was wrecked. My dream of being an astronaut had officially died. The dream was replaced by a fear of leaving my own home. There was no map for this journey. I couldn't see through my own sadness. So I used anger as my guide. Fast forward 20 years, and the angry child had become an even angrier adult. I had even picked a job that would allow me to yell and scream at people. I'm being serious. It's something called personal training. A few of my clients are in the audience. I had become one and opened a gym. The gym did quite well for a while. But that anger, it was dragging me to my knees. It had left a swath of broken relationships, one of which, in 1999, had created the only person I ever really loved, my daughter, Kaylee Marie. A little bit about Kaylee. She was born on Easter. She came out smiling. As she grew older, she loved saving things. I wish we had lived on a farm. It felt like a farm with all the stray cats that we had at our house. It's not surprising she was about to save someone much larger. Do you remember the economy crashing in 2008? Things at my gym were going sideways. It was becoming tough to keep a roof over our head. It was dire. I needed to figure out how to keep the doors open. The weekend I chose to work on my plan, timing isn't always wonderful, happened to be my birthday weekend, and I was with Kaylee. Parents in the audience, I bet you've heard this one before. Dad, Mom, I'm bored, I want something to do. I was crafty and needed to buy myself some time. I had a magazine on my desk with Mark Zuckerberg on the cover. It was about Facebook taking over the world. Inspired by my own life, I turned to the world part and I tore it into pieces and tossed them on the ground. I said, Kaylee, if you can put this together, I'll take you to the twisty tree. She was like, ice cream! She got into silence. What would emerge? I figured at least 2 hours. At 8, she hadn't had geography class yet. However, 10 minutes later, she was standing at my door. And you didn't guess what she was holding up. She was holding up a picture of Mark Zuckerberg. All I could do was laugh at this point. I said, Kaylee, how did you get Mark put together so fast? What she said solved everything. Dad, nobody is so torn up they can't be put back together again. She then walked over and handed me this card. Inside of it was the glue. Dear Dad, you're the best. I love you. Love, love, love. She sealed it with this great big hug. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, I finally found my bearings. Everyone we meet is probably going through a struggle, but none of us are so torn up that we can't be put back together again. With love. If we choose love and love only, we all have a chance to be the best. The dream for all of our lives in this room. The best version of ourselves. Zig Ziglar summed up the whole situation best when he said, if we want to get this world right, we have to get the man right. We went out for our ice cream that night, and I said, Kaylee, you know, Daddy really wanted you to put together the world. She said, Dad, I'm only 8 years old. I don't know what the world is supposed to look like. I said, Kaylee, that love thing, that's exactly how the world is supposed to look. Madam Contest Master.